All right, it's Mike Cosgrove. Welcome back, folks. PCIA podcast and called Pro Concepts. Thank you for joining us. It's a wonderful day today. I've got a good friend and colleague, Alana Nicol, joining me here today. Welcome, Alana.
Thank you.
And to reach out to PCIA, you can do that by calling 800-969-4041. We do this odd thing where we actually answer the phone when someone calls, and our website is pciaonline.com. And so Alana is the president and CEO of Jerry Weinberg and Associates Sandler Training, and I think I did that backwards. Either way is fine. Good, thank you, Alana. But Sandler Training and Jerry Weinberg and Associates, and today Alana's here to talk with us about the top 5 ways to scale your business. But before we do that, Alana, share with us background on Jerry Weinberg and Associates.
Sure. So Jerry Weinberg and Associates is a local office of Sandler Training. So Sandler Training is a global organization. I think it's the largest in the world. We have in like 30 different countries, over 500 different trainers, and our local office is in Southfield. We've been there for almost 28 years. So wow. Jerry Weinberg was the founder of our company. He's also my dad. So I am second generation into the business. Feel really, really thankful about that. We have the opportunity to help a lot of individuals in the local area as well as nationally. And I like to say that we're in the performance business. We're helping people improve their performance both personally and professionally. Obviously, that translates to sales and margins and all those things. But one of the most rewarding things to me about what we do is to be able to watch the personal growth that I've experienced myself. I've been in the business for 17 years. And so just my own growth and then being able to watch that growth happen with our clients is really rewarding.
That's awesome. So we were talking before we went live and everything that we're both second generations in our companies. And until we reached not to give away your age or anything, but until we reached our 40s, we were both fairly sensitive about that why we were at our organizations. And it's funny, as I talked to Alana, I could tell she has obviously a true passion and a love for what they do. And I just felt like that we definitely had that connection there as we were kind of chatting about that. So, and I had actually been to a program that your dad had done probably 20 years ago, I'm thinking. And I remember just like sitting in the audience going, if I could be half of what that guy is, I'll do pretty well. You know what I mean? And Jerry does an amazing job in that. So start us out, Alana. What would be something, I'll first ask, what's something of interest that you'd like to share with the audience that maybe everybody doesn't know?
Sure. I think one of the unique things about me is my adoption story. We've got an amazing adoption story in my personal family. So I was adopted at birth. Jerry Weinberg is actually my second dad, and so he adopted me again after he married my mom. So I've been adopted twice myself. Wow. Jerry's 2 kids from his first marriage are also adopted. I have a younger brother who's also adopted, and then my daughter is 14, and she's adopted as well. So big adoption story in our life. Yeah.
I love that. That's amazing. Thank you. So how about from a favorite business book? And Alana, the last podcast we had, Kim Fricke-Menace was on, and Kim reads a ton of books. And I think if there's anyone that I bet probably reads more than Kim, that might be Alana and her dad. I know Jerry does as well.
He's a much bigger reader than me.
Oh, gosh. And I have to say, I had asked Jerry a question. I became part of the Sandler group as of fairly recent, maybe 3 or 4 months ago now. And Jerry had stepped in. I think you co-presented is maybe the best way to say it. And Jerry stepped in and was talking about something, and I ended up asking him a question. I was curious what the best time management book was that he would recommend. And it was funny, later that day, Jerry calls back and leaves me a voicemail on my cell phone. Like, I wasn't expecting that. I mean, he's got an audience of, I don't know, there was 50 people there, and literally I had a call back from him that day with what book I should be considering and that kind of thing. So I love that.
He's got an insatiable knowledge for learning. That's no better mentor to watch, right? I'll catch up to him maybe within 50% in my lifetime.
Sure.
As far as where he's gotten. It's pretty incredible.
That's awesome. So what would be your favorite book?
It's a tough choice because I've read a lot, and obviously I could name a Sandler book, but I'm not going to. One of my favorite books that really hit me with impact as trying to grow and scale a business, and especially because it's our topic today, right, is the E-Myth. And I specifically read, I think there's a second edition called the E-Myth Revisited. And I'm blanking on the author's name, but it's a phenomenal book to help you understand the different hats that we wear, the operator of doing what you did. So some of your clients being the engineer, being the architect, or in my dad's case, being the sales guy.
Sure.
But then to grow and scale, you need to be wearing the manager hat and then also work on the strategy side of the business and really working on the business. So it really resonated for me as a good awareness of kind of the different hats that were at play and how do we need to look at things differently in order to grow and scale. So it's been several years since I've read it. I'm probably due to read it again, but that's the one that jumps off into my head when you first ask.
Okay. And I always love to ask that question, and that is a book. It's been a while since I've read it as well, so I'm right there with you. I'm going to have to read that one. I'm just finishing the 12-week year.
I love that book. That makes my top 5 list as well.
Brian somebody, but I'm terrible about the authors as well. I'm like,
we read it as a team probably 2 years ago or so and worked on adapting that concept. That's a great one too.
Sure. So I noticed you use the word sales. Mm-hmm. So I got to ask, is sales a dirty word? Because PCIA, we deal with architectural firms, engineering firms, CPA firms, law firms. And if you're familiar with those different industries, if those of you that are joining in that perhaps aren't in those fields currently, each one has its own, I'll call it stigma. And I don't even know if that's the right term, but like lawyers don't market, as an example. But really, aren't we all in sales?
Absolutely. And it's funny. So my husband's in the engineering side of the business and works in one of your sweet spots of clients that you serve. And one of the things that you notice about anybody in those professional services firms is, first of all, they don't want to be associated with the word sales at all.
Right.
And even in Sandler, we've rewritten content for them. So it's not called sales, it's called business development because that's what they call it. Because for whatever reason, like you said, just such a strong stigma that they have around sales. But they can't be a lawyer, they can't be an accountant, they can't be an architect if they don't have any clients themselves to do their skills with.
Absolutely.
So everybody really has to have that sales mentality.
Sure.
And we'll kind of talk about that as a way to scale too, by everybody having that type of mindset. But it is very funny, very unique to the industry. I know even in companies I'm aware of, they won't call it a sales meeting. They call it a marketing meeting because marketing is more acceptable. But really, it's a sales meeting. But for whatever reason, that word is taboo for a lot of those folks.
So it's funny. We have a business development person at our office. And so I've always been very sensitive about the word sales. And I really don't feel that we sell anything. I mean, I always think that from our perspective as an insurance agency dealing in the different professions that we deal with, it's more consulting, that we're really more, it's something that they need already. And so we're just basically kind of helping out, say, as an example, from a continuing education standpoint, helping raise awareness within their firm of different risk that a CPA firm or a law firm or an architect or engineer might encounter. And so we do that through the educational training that we do in our clients' offices and all that good stuff. But I don't feel like we have to sell anything, which I think is awesome. And if I put myself in their shoes, they too don't really have to sell anything, but really more consult and figure out a way that they can ultimately help the client, right?
Yeah, I think if we were to take the word sales and replace it with help, we would be in a wholly different mindset, right? We're just helping people, the opportunity to help them. But I think it goes all the way back to like snake oil salesmen and people selling stuff that's not good, right? There's just such a negative connotation. When you say sales, you think sleazy. We do this in training, right? Give me adjectives to describe a salesperson, and none of them are nice.
Right.
So I think that's why people tend to feel that way, that, well, I didn't go into sales. I don't want to be associated with sales. I'm well educated. I've got this degree. I'm not in sales. You are in sales. Anybody in a business environment that needs revenue to come in from clients, customers, whatever you call them, really is in sales. We're in sales every day, even in our personal lives. You got to sell ideas and sell support to people. So absolutely.
Sure. With kids, with spouses. The whole enchilada, right? We're always in sales. It's kind of like, are you doing the laundry tonight, or am I? You know what I mean? Like you're always selling and negotiating to some degree if you really want to look at it like that. So I have to say, it's once in a while I'll see someone's business card, not in the industry or on a door somewhere, and I'll see that sales, and I constantly think to myself, boy, they should change that. So it's embedded in me as well, and so I'm with you. So we're talking about the top 5 ways to scale your business. What would you say What's a top one that kind of comes to mind that you're like, you're in an elevator with somebody and you got 30 seconds or 60 seconds and they realize that you're the president and CEO of this company and they're like, Alana, what's the one thing I should do? What would be the top one that you would throw out there? And I know you've got a lot of good ones, but
yeah, it's really hard to narrow it down. But if we're talking specifically about scaling, meaning we're somewhere here and we want to get to somewhere bigger, broader, whatever that looks like, the biggest mistake we see is that people design their vision and their goals and even their org chart based on what it is today. Okay. So really, we've got to design the vision of where we want to go and then design an org chart that meets that vision. And it doesn't necessarily have the same people in positions that we have in place right now. And it's very difficult to separate the position from the person, especially when we've had long-time employees. But I can tell you, even in scaling our own business, and this comes from an exercise even out of a Sandler book, but David Mattson, our CEO, The Road to Excellence is the name of the book where this exercise sits in it. But the idea of creating the vision of what you're looking for 5, 10, whatever years from now, then you're going to draw your org chart with the different functional groups. Because when you're smaller, right, everybody wears a lot of hats. We're wearing multiple hats. It's typically a pretty flat organization. So what do we need to put in place from a structure perspective? Then we design the positions of what those different boxes on the org chart should look like. Then you take the existing people that you have and figure out how well they fit there or what else you need to add to the team. But being able to separate that position from the person is not easy. And then thinking outside of our norms of where we are now. Okay, what I know today is based on what got me here. But in most cases, what got us here isn't going to be what gets us there.
To the next level.
Yeah. So being able to define based on the vision of the revenue and the whatever it is you want to go after, what is the structure that I need to put in place, and then start building against the structure instead of exactly what you have today.
Okay. So get the right folks in the right seats on the bus.
But first define the seats, because a lot of times when we were smaller, we could get away with wearing multiple hats or doing part-time this and part-time that. And a thing I see a lot, like even if we were to take, your organization or my organization, it's a fairly flat organization. And as you build and scale, some of that needs to change, depending on how much bigger you want to get, what additional services or products you want to offer, whatever it looks like. It typically requires a structural change. And until we define the structure and what's required from the position, minus the people that we got, I see a lot of people put into seats that they shouldn't be in, or we're having people wear too many different hats, or we're looking for purple unicorns that don't exist, because if I actually wrote the position down, it's actually 3 people and not 1.
Right.
So we do see a lot of that.
Okay.
That's a fantastic exercise. If you want to scale, just start brainstorming to yourself, okay, what would it need to look like for me to get here? What type of organization should be in place? Like even companies like ours, right? There should be a financial. We might outsource it right now, but you still have the different the buckets that they fall into, and really identifying that structure that's needed and then defining that very well and then filling the people. We have a tendency to do it the other way around.
Sure. Do you think that organizations struggle with this one the most? Is there, to tell folks to create the vision and the org and as far as the futuristic look, but do you ever have to literally sit down with them and really kind of pound it out with them? And okay.
Yeah, a lot of times it's one thing to say this is where I want to go, but building that plan of how to get there. And I know for me personally, even I have a hard time looking outside of the current constraints. I look at what I know today, but it's that is as is versus to be model. And sometimes getting to that to be, I keep telling myself, but this is what we have right now. But that's not the point of the exercise.
Sure.
The point is to define what do you need to get there. And the better you define that, the easier it is to find the people that go in it instead of the other way around.
And I love this because, vision and org chart is really like creating your goals. Right. Mm-hmm. It's a visual way of creating a goal. And so once it's in paper, it becomes more realistic and it becomes more of something that you've put into the atmosphere. I'm a big believer. And remember what was the movie and the book, The Secret? I love it. I love that because and it's funny because someone over the weekend, an older gentleman that I know, made a comment about probably won't be around until a certain age. And I'm like, absolutely not. Like, you cannot
say that out
put that
loud.
in the atmosphere. Exactly. I mean, if you decide you're going to live to 104 and you make it to 102, that's pretty darn good. Like, don't think that way. So,
Yeah.
all right. So I love that. All right. So creating a vision in org, number one. So how about, so going on from there, what would be a number two for you?
Well, the number two, we kind of already talked about it, right?
Okay.
Having the mindset that everybody really is in sales. I mean, from any administrative warehouse, whatever, anybody in your company is in sales, especially the ones that touch the customers.
Right.
I've seen, we didn't do this, but I've seen people do this, like office manager, receptionist, or whoever's the first person that somebody sees is really the director of client experience or client impressions.
Absolutely.
And so it's really important tone that they understand their role. And everybody has a way to make us better. Everybody has ideas to contribute, and everybody's selling something, whether you're selling it internally or you're selling it externally. Everybody's in sales and should look at themselves to some degree that way. But because of the stigma, it's difficult.
Right.
But we have to understand that everyone's in sales. In order to keep the doors open and your paycheck's coming, everybody's in sales.
Yeah. We do a program called This Is Not a Non-for-Profit Organization.
I love it.
And most firms, when they hear the title, they're like, can you come do that for our entire firm? And it really is geared for like the whole firm, because everything we do, all of us, from the director of first impressions, I think was the title that you used, to the president and CEO and everyone in between, everyone adds to that bottom line. And the more cognizant they are of that, the better. We've got a lot of firms that are ESOPs. And I feel like when I go into an ESOP firm where, everyone there, or the majority of the folks are percentage of owners, it just feels different to me. I mean, from the moment I walk in, and they don't all have to be ESOPs. We've got lots of firms that aren't. But the ESOPs, I walk in and it just, every one of the ones that are ESOPs, it has that same feel because they have pure ownership in their job function and responsibilities.
Ownership mentality.
Exactly. And that's a tough thing to teach. I think it can be taught, but I think it's a tough thing to teach. And it's interesting. Over the weekend, we had an art fair downtown here in Brighton. And so we just had our oldest daughter, who's 18, with us. And so that my wife and I and our oldest daughter, we were walking downtown and they were closing up and it was probably like 8:30. I mean, these folks had been outside running their booths all day, and the gal's closing up, and my daughter's going off to college, and there was and I feel terrible. I cannot give a shout out to the company because they did a phenomenal job, but the gal sold like mace spray and like defense things for folks. And so with our daughter going to college, I thought, I should get this for her, but she was like almost packed up. And I said, are you still able to like run a Venmo or something? Cause I'd like to buy one of these for my daughter. And I could tell her body language wasn't 100% at first. And I just kept talking to her, and cause I've been there where I've run booths, and that's a very tiring experience. Long story short, we got done. And as we walked away, Kennedy looked at me and she said, I watched exactly what you did. And you were able to completely turn her around to where she wanted to help us because she realized I was going to college and you were concerned about, you know what I mean? And just how you talked to her about your life experience because she was in that same boat at that given time. And anyways, I thought that was interesting that finally my 18-year-old kind of saw what I've been trying to show her,
What a great teaching moment.
Yes.
I love that she's 18 and paid attention. That's good.
It was a first. So yes, it was good. And I thought of another book too. We were talking about buses a moment ago. The Energy Bus.
Yes, good book.
Phenomenal. My buddy actually from Valdosta, Georgia sent me that book a couple of years ago, and I read it, and I think I've had everybody in the office now has read that. That's another really good book. But so awesome. So adopting the fact that everyone is in sales. How about number 3?
Yeah, so it's kind of an interesting pivot from where we just were to let's define kind of who we should be selling to. It's amazing to me the lack of definition that occurs out there in really narrowing down exactly what's my sweet spot. At Sandler, we call it ideal client profile.
Okay.
And a lot of people's ideal client profiles had to be rewritten in the last 18, 24 months with everything that we've gone through. And if we haven't done that exercise, it's probably time to do that exercise because maybe who or what we sold 24 months ago needs to be sold different or be different in general. But when we don't have a very good target of who we're going after, then it's a lot harder to focus prospecting activities and create an effective prospecting strategy to target who we want. It also tends to end us with taking business that we probably shouldn't take.
Sure.
So meaning it's not good business for us, they're a pain in the neck, or they're really high resource problems, and they're not helping us grow and scale because we haven't done a good job of truly defining to a very understandable level what is my ideal client profile.
Sure.
What do they do? Where are they? Who are the titles I call on? What are the issues and challenges that they should be having so that I know when I run into them, they're going to be a good fit for me.
Sure.
And it's amazing that the definition throughout organizations doesn't exist. And then you get a bunch of salespeople running around and they'll go sell anything to anyone. But then we're in a place where we're not making money, or we're not selling the right things, or we've watered down our offerings, etc.
It's like looking at the big picture.
Yeah.
There's a phrase I love called jack of all trades, but a master of none.
Yes.
That sounds exactly like what you were just kind of sharing. And I don't know that we've ever even really dove into this, but the typical business model for an insurance agency is to be in a Brighton and work with any and all businesses within a 20-mile radius. And that is the polar opposite of who we've always been since '88, in that our only clientele are the professional services. And I tell you, we get pulled, or we have outside pulls that will try to pull us in different directions. And I refuse to do it. I'm just not gonna. I love being very, very niche oriented, knowing our clients associations, being able to help our clients, because I feel like if I then go to try to do this over here, I'm not going to do a very good job at it. Right. And to your point, we won't do well. We won't be able to help that client very well. Ultimately, it's going to become a problematic relationship, let's say, and it just doesn't make sense to do that. So, but I love that one too. So defining the client profile is
being laser focused on it, because it's tempting, right? I'm sure there's people maybe in your office that are like, "You're sure we can't just help this one? They really need our help." And that one might be okay, but just like you said, because you are so niche, and your niche is wide, right?
Sure.
I mean, you've got a lot of potential within that niche. But it better helps you understand their unique issues and challenges. You know how to talk to them. You know how to help them. You know what problems to anticipate to protect them from. And we just can't be all that to everyone.
Right.
So really being able to dial that in, document it. When you onboard new people, it's a lot easier to onboard them when you say, here's who we serve, and this is it. You might be tempted to do this. Here's why we don't do that.
Right.
But it just helps more focus, purpose, etc.
Sure. For our design firms, one thing that comes to mind with, let's say, the architects, I've seen over the years where you've got a architectural firm that really specializes in the commercial space, retail, commercial, shopping, all of that good stuff. And then they'll have that big client of theirs that says, "Can you just design my custom home?" And I tell you, I've seen many firms where they get burned on that. They get talked into it. They know better, and they end up having, perhaps an issue there because it's not something that they do every day.
And then we've damaged a relationship.
Exactly.
Not on purpose, but that's not good either.
Absolutely. All right. So ensure you've defined your ideal client profile is a great one. How about number 4?
This one is huge for me. Being able to measure and manage your business with the right types of indicators. So I will do a quick little overview of what I'm talking about. So there's 2 types of indicators we could look to measure any performance. And with the athletes and all the Olympics going on, all this translates to their world too, right? So the runners, the swimmers, they're not just tracking their final times. That's a lagging indicator. So whatever they ended the race at, they ended the race. It's over. It's a good benchmark to know where they are, but it's too late to course correct. It's lagging. So when we're tracking revenue and we're tracking profitability and margins and AR, all important, we need to do that. And certainly I'm not saying not to do that. But what we're missing is the leading indicator side of things. Okay. What are the leading key performance indicators that are necessary to ensure that we hit those lagging goals? Okay. Because the leading indicators is the activity that your people can control. And you could have leading metrics for anybody in your organization. This is not just a sales specific, but obviously sales the world I live in the most.
Sure.
So things like prospecting attempts. How many times are they picking up the phone and making a call? Oh my gosh, could people actually do that anymore? They do. At least they should. But how many times are they making a prospecting attempt? To me, the biggest, most impactful KPI in sales is what we call first appointment evers. You're never closing a new firm if you don't meet with them for the first time.
Sure.
So being able to look at how many first appointment evers should these people have on their calendars, and then are they actually doing it? Because when we're talking about leading stuff, the nice thing is it can be managed. We can course correct. If we've got 3 or 4 different leading indicators that we're measuring, and most of them are good, but one isn't, okay, well, typically if we're not meeting the leading indicator, it's one of 2 problems. Either the technique is wrong, they're not doing it the right way, or they're executing it in the wrong place. Like, so for example, networking might be one that a salesperson's tracking. Well, if I'm going to 3 networking gigs a week, which I would never want to do. I don't love networking.
Sure.
I should like it. I don't. So anyway, if I were going to 3 networking meetings a week and my first appointment evers aren't growing,
right,
I'm either going to the wrong networking events where my ideal client profile aren't hanging out, or the way in which I'm executing the networking technique is wrong. But then I can figure out which one of those is the problem and then coach and manage that. And most of the problems that at least I see in sales stem from not enough activity. Our people are just not prospecting, and it could be prospecting within existing accounts and looking for ways to grow the business or looking to gain new business, but they're just not doing enough of that activity to get the goals that they want to get, because most people don't really like prospecting, and you don't have to like it, but you have to do it if you want to grow and scale and that type of thing. So figuring out what the leading indicators are for the different roles in your company. We're onboarding a new customer service or client success type of person at the end of the month. So her KPIs are going to be focused around client outreach. So she'll have a leading indicator of how many outreaches does she need to make to clients, and then how many conversations is she having as a result of those, because those are leading things that I can track, measure, coach against, that then should help us keep our clients longer and client retention and all that type of stuff that is ultimately an accountability area for her. But here's the leading activity that I expect. It makes it better to measure and manage performance. But we see a lot of organizations really laser focused on the lagging, which is okay, but you need the leading indicator to go around with it. And a lot of the leaders that I see have absolutely no idea what the activity level is. If they're doing the right activities, if they're doing the right quantities of the activities, they don't know. So we help them put in what we kind of call a cookbook, which, think about a recipe, right? When I go to cook anything, which I don't do that great of job at, I'm not the best cook, especially when it comes to baking. I don't like baking. But let's pretend I was.
Sure.
And just the other day, my daughter wanted to make zucchini bread. I'm like, okay, well, pull out the recipe. So when she's going to make zucchini bread, you don't just throw a bunch of random ingredients into the bowl and then shove it in the oven and hope it comes out good, right? It's a very specific mix of certain things added at a certain time at a certain quantity to help you get to the end result. We look at anything in the business world could be broke down into those KPIs of ingredients, activities that people need to do on a consistent basis, because that's what I can control. That's what I can change. The end result is what it is. So it's really important that we're tracking and measuring both in organizations.
So the KPIs that I would think that with a new staff member coming in for any organization, if they get the KPIs, that's their roadmap to success. And without it, they're kind of going to figure it out themselves, right?
Yep.
I mean, they're gonna take clues on what people say to them and do, and how they interact with different folks within the organization, but they may not be hitting on those KPIs. And if we don't tell them, are they supposed to figure it out on their own?
Pretty much. I mean, I see the most onboarding that I see is, okay, Mike, welcome to the team. You're going to follow Jerry around for 2 weeks, and then you're going to follow so-and-so around, and then, good luck.
Sure. Yeah.
No, we need to be really specific around what success should look like so that they know what they should be doing and when they should be doing it and how to access those things. And so the onboarding plan of the activity and then management of the activity over time is what helps us get to success. And I do get some pushback from leaders that go, but Alana, I don't want to micromanage my people. But this goes back to the word we were talking about when you were talking about ESOPs around having ownership.
Right.
If this is done the right way, and really top performers want this, they want to be told, here's the expectation, so that they can meet it and sometimes blow it out of the water. Right. That's what top performers want. So they want to be here's what I need you to do, so that they can go out and execute it. Right. It's those, let's call them C players, the mediocres that just want to sit there, collect a paycheck, and be on retirement while they're on your payroll.
Sure.
Those ones don't like the accountability of having some metrics in place, but it's our responsibility as leaders to help our people understand what's expected.
Sure.
And it's amazing how poor a job I see being done of that because, you should know what to do. Just go out and do it.
What I think would be interesting is if an organization said to, say 10 of their staff members, tell me your top 3 responsibilities. Don't you think they would be shocked at what people might tell them they think their top 3 are?
It's a great exercise to do with your people. Yeah. Ask them, what are the things that you do and what are your top 3? It's going to be, most of the time I've seen that done, it's a different list between the employee and the leader. And it's pretty eye-opening to see what they think is important as it compares to what you think is important.
And it's a great starting point though, right?
Absolutely. Great one. So, and level set, are they doing the right things? Are they focused on the right things? Sure. What do they think is important?
Well, and micromanage, you mentioned the word micromanage. I mean, I think that isn't the way to manage anything as far as that goes. But I also believe that these are your top 5 KPIs, these are also the top 5 things that we're going to inspect. Yes. We're going to inspect what we expect. And then there's no question. There's no micromanage behind that. These are our 5 goals. Mm-hmm. Are we reaching them or are we not reaching, that kind of thing. So,
and then if we're incentivizing what we want them to do, right? I see a lot of mistakes made specifically in sales where it's a really heavy salary situation. And I'm not opposed to having salary. There's a certain level of security and comfort that's required. But when we don't incentivize new business separate than maintenance business, what do you think most people focus on?
Sure.
It's the maintenance business because that's easiest. The people already like them. They don't have to work to try to reach new people, and it doesn't make a difference in the bottom line in their checking account.
Sure.
So we've got to sometimes look at how are we incentivizing the activity. I'm a big proponent if you're measuring by KPIs. Bonus KPIs being met and exceeded on top of salaries. They don't have to be in sales to be able to do that.
Sure.
We can bonus performance when they're meeting and exceeding expectations on a consistent basis.
Yeah. So it's funny. I look at our organization, we've been around 33 years and I always think we're doing a pretty darn good job. And then I talk to Alana and I realize, holy cow, I got a lot of work to do. And so I've already got 4 things on my list that I need to focus on. But what would be the 5th one here that you'd like to share?
Yeah, so this is kind of right in line with the maintenance versus new business. So when we're looking for growth, because that's what we're talking about, right? We're looking at how do we grow, how do we scale? Well, where does the growth need to come from? Have we figured out how much growth needs to come from our existing business? So the clients or customers that we already have that are already buying stuff from us, and they're going to fall into 2 categories themselves.
Sure.
One is going to fall into kind of what we call a keep category, which means they're buying everything they can buy from us. Great business. We want it. We want to keep it. Hence why it's called keep.
Sure.
And we need to protect and maintain it because somebody else is going to try to take it from us. But there isn't any growth options. It's just a maintenance and protect. Really important. But that's a protect and maintain type of account. The other type of account that comes with business that we already have is the expand account, meaning they're buying something from us, but there's more out there. It could be additional lines of service like what you offer. It could be different product lines. It could be a different location, a lot of different things that could create additional revenue for us, but we're not proactively going after it. Because what I see the biggest mistake is we treat all expands like keeps. We just look at keeps and say there are existing customers. A lot of times organizations aren't even aware of the full potential available based on their existing business. And the worst thing you can hear when you go see a customer and you find out that they just bought something that you have offered that they didn't know you offered, and they say, oh, well, I just did that over here because I didn't know that was something that you did.
Oh, gosh.
That's the worst, right? So that's the lowest hanging fruit in most organizations is figure out what more available business is there on the accounts you already have that know, love, and trust you. And then build the KPIs around going out and asking for that business as part of what the people are doing to grow the business. The other thing we see is a lot of, and it depends on the environment, right? But we forget about the customers we used to have and don't have anymore that maybe we should reach back out to. We call those the recapture folks.
Okay.
So is there business where, for whatever reason, and we could have done something wrong or for no fault of their own, business goes away, things change, whatever. But do we know who hasn't ordered from us if you're in a shorter sales cycle in 60 days, 90 days, a year? And are we reaching back out to find out what happened to them and try to get some of those back? It's staggering to me to see how little focus in some organizations is spent on figuring out who did we used to work with that we don't anymore that we should be going back out and reaching out to.
Sure.
And then the last quadrant of where business comes from is pure what we call attain, right? So new business, new logos, people we've never worked with before. And here's the biggest mistake here. Back to ideal client profile. How well defined is that? And then do we have a hit list? Do you have a top 10 list, a 20 list, a 50 list? Do we have a prospect target list that we're actively going after?
Sure.
Most organizations, or not most, some don't. And so then we're left to grow based on how business comes to us instead of how we want it to grow. Very different things.
Okay, awesome. So I want to say that the statistic on, you mentioned about a client not realizing that you offer a certain segment, whatever that segment might be. I think the statistic is, as human beings, we need to hear things 7 times before we commit it to memory. If I'm remembering that right.
That sounds right.
Does that sound right?
Sure.
Right, because we do talk about that in our organization, that if something happens incorrectly and someone says, well, I didn't realize, I always look at it as, okay, that's on us. We didn't tell them 7 times. We've talked about it a couple of times, but they need to hear it a few times. And so I think with something like that, I think all organizations can always do a better job of making sure that their clients are aware of anything and everything that they do and what they do well, right? So awesome. Cool. So there's our top 5.
Yeah, that's 5.
Yeah, awesome. Anything else you want to leave? You want to share with anyone? And
Sure. I've got an extra bonus one just because of the world that we're in right now. And it's, what are we doing to embrace and leverage technology? Obviously, the world changed in the last 18, 24 months. There were a huge population that never knew what a Zoom meeting was until 18, 24 months ago. And now that technology is more accessible, more aware, how well are we doing at it to make our businesses more efficient? We don't have to jump on airplanes and fly all over the place. We can do an effective job if you're effectively selling or communicating with customers to leverage technology. Video is the biggest trend that we're seeing, and we've started using a tool called Vidyard. There's other ones like Loom and certain things out there. Vidyard happens to be the one that Sandler's partnered with. And I cannot tell you, it's like at least an 8 times higher open rate when using video. And so we're using it in prospecting. I'm using it to engage with clients so that I can set expectations. You can use it for onboarding, to do a tutorial of something. You can use a quick video to how-to type of thing, things that you get over and over and over again.
Oh.
Ways to be more efficient, but you got to get over, I don't want to be on camera, or I don't want to use a video, or this WebEx stuff, this Zoom stuff. It'll go away. Like, it's fine. We're starting to move around again. It'll go away. It's not going away.
It's here to stay.
Definitely here to stay. So where can you look for technology, learn new things, bring people into your organization that embrace technology maybe more than you do?
Sure.
That can kind of help get you along, because there's so much efficiency to be gained. There's a lot of value add to go back to your customer base and your client base with, as well as a way to stand out. There's so much noise now. More is being bombarded at us every day, so we've got to find a way to stand out and add value.
That's a great point about the noise, because I feel like we have noise in every aspect of our lives, right? And you got to really boil it down to what's important. And so that the video, and when you say video, I mean, we're talking 30-second clip, like something pretty short, minute, couple of minutes, something like that.
For any prospecting thing, my rule of thumb is always under a minute, right?
Okay.
Let's be short, let's be brief. I'm going to show a client how to do something. I might be able to get away with a couple of minutes, but our attention span just isn't that long.
Sure.
But we've started redoing even our processes on how to do stuff, maybe what we used to have in a Word document, written out step by step, and transforming that into a video. So like this new hire that I have coming on at the end of the month, it's going to be much more efficient for her to watch how to do something and follow along than just have to read a document or have somebody tell her. So even internal process development and stuff, a lot of opportunity to leverage technology to make it better.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that. So so at number 6 even, there's a bonus for us. So thank you. So if the audience would like to reach out to you, Alana, how would they get a hold of you and Sandler Training and Jerry Weinberg and Associates?
Yeah. So the best way is probably, we've got a website, which is jerryweinberg.sandler.com. And this will be in the notes, I think, of the session notes or something like that, right?
Absolutely.
I'll attach my LinkedIn profile, Alana Nicol on LinkedIn. You'll have my email address. We would love to have any of your audience be able to do a complimentary consultation with us as part of being able to be on the show. We'd be happy to do kind of what we just went through and do a little assessment for them on where are they in 4 different areas. We'd be happy to do that to any of the listeners. So if they reach out and mention this, I'm happy to help them through that.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Alana. I appreciate that. Thank you for being here with me today and coming out this direction. And if anyone needs to reach out to PCIA, you can do that at 800-969-4041. And the website address is PCIA online.com. Thank you for joining in. See you next time. Thanks so much.